Good evening, folks, and welcome to Heavy Metal Talk. I'm your host, Sean Patrick Erschen, and this week we are talking about Pantera. Yeah. And why are we talking about Pantera in 2022? That's because they've recently announced that there's going to be a Pantera Reunion Tour, yes. And that's going to take place next year, 2023. Featuring the remaining members of Pantera, that being, of course, Phil Anselmo, who's the vocalist for Pantera, and Rex Brown, who's the bass player for Pantera. And filling in the legendary shoes of the Abbott brothers, Dimebag and Vinnie Paul, is going to be Zakk Wylde, who obviously played for Ozzy Osbourne's band for many years, his own band, and of course Black Label Society and stuff like that. And he was really close with Dimebag. He was good friends with Dimebag. And Charlie Benante from Anthrax, one of the most underrated metal drummers of all time. He's just a machine, that guy. So am I psyched about it? Yeah. I mean, I'm on board with it. I hope to see it. I did actually see recently Phil Anselmo and the Illegals doing their tribute to Pantera, doing all Pantera songs. And they opened for Slayer on their final tour, so I did get to see that. And I'm one of the lucky people that did get to see Pantera in their heyday, in their prime, several times. I saw them on Ozfest. I saw him during the, Far Beyond Driven era. I saw him in the Southern Trendkill era. And I saw him during the Reinventing Steel era. I saw him tour with White Zombie. And I saw them tour with Rob Zombie, too. So yes, several times. And every time they were amazing, just blew the roof off the place, phenomenal, so. And I also got to see Damageplan twice. And that's the band that Dimebag and Vinnie Paul had after Pantera. And I also got to meet them. I got to meet Dimebag and Vinnie Paul at the time they were in Damageplan. I got their autograph and everything. It's freaking awesome. So yeah, amazing memories of all those times. Yeah. So such a big fan of Pantera. One of my absolute favorites during, my college years, And I still listen to this day, Phenomenal band, so influential, Just an amazing band. So I think where the controversy lies with it is, how things were before Dimebag died and before Vinnie Paul died, And it all goes back to the Disillusion of Pantera, the issues that Dime and Vinnie had with Phil Anselmo. And a little bit with Rex, too, Yeah, so the problems that led to the breakup of Pantera was that, Phil was going through a lot of stuff. He was on drugs, he was on heroin, to cover up the problems he was having with his back. He was having serious back and neck issues, and that was causing him to numb the pain by taking heroin and God knows what else, And he was kind of retreated to New Orleans even while he was with Pantera. Like during the recording of Southern Trendkill, he did his vocals from New Orleans while the band did everything else, in Texas. And all that kind of, came to a head, his kind of staying away from Pantera and doing his own thing with all the multiple side projects like Superjoint Ritual and Down and Necrophagia and all that stuff. And eventually they're just like, you know what? Just go do your own thing, They tried to contact Phil several times. At least that's what they say. They said they tried so many times to contact Phil to come back to Pantera, and do the Pantera thing instead of all the side project stuff. And it came to a head, and they just called it a day, and after that, they kind of traded blows at the media, talking a lot of smack on both ends, and things were ugly, for a while, And then, of course, Dimebag got murdered on stage, while he was playing with Damageplan, by some crazy ex-military dude, crazed Pantera obsessed fan, went and jumped on stage and blew his head off, Absolutely horrific and horrifying tragedy, And after that, things got even worse between Vinnie Paul and Phil Anselmo, especially on Vinnie's end. He basically hated Phil Anselmo, and I think he blamed a lot of Dimebag's death on Phil, which I don't think is right, but, I think there was a lot of animosity there because of that, And also Dime's wife, I don't know if they ever got married, actually. Rita was Dime's ex-girlfriend, long time girlfriend. Things between her and Phil were ugly too, but eventually they did reconcile, and now they're good friends, And she gives her blessing for this Pantera reunion. She thinks it's a great idea and a great way to pay tribute to Dimebag and Vinnie Paul. Which I think makes it okay for me, as long as their families both gave the blessing, and Dime's side and Vinnie Paul's side, both their families have given the blessing for them to use the Pantera name to do this tribute tour. So I think when you look at it that way, it makes sense, and I'm okay with it because of that. If that wasn't the case, I wouldn't be okay with it, But I understand why some people are upset. They think maybe this isn't right because Vinnie Paul, hated Phil before he died, Things never got resolved between them, And you say, well, maybe they would have made up eventually. Maybe they wouldn't have. I don't know. But I'm okay with it, and I think it's going to be cool, and I think it's a nice way to pay tribute to Dime and Vinnie Paul. Are they going to make a lot of money? Yeah. I mean, and you say, well, it's not really Pantera, and yeah, I agree with that too. It's not really Pantera. It's just a tribute to Pantera. I don't see it as being actually Pantera, because you can't really have Pantera without Dimebag and Vinnie Paul. There really is no way. But I think this is going to be the closest we'll ever get to Pantera for a lot of people, Because a lot of the Pantera fans weren't even born back then, So a lot of people that are going to be going to these concerts are going to be people like me in their mid to late 40s and stuff, 50 years old, But I think there are a lot of young Pantera fans too, in their 20s, and even teenagers, some like Pantera and stuff, And this will be their way to, get a piece of Pantera, even though it's not the whole band, And when I think about that, I think about all the bands that have gone on using the names of their respective bands, even if they have only one or two members. There's a lot of bands, like, for example, Fear Factory right now. They only have one original member, Dino Cazares. Because Burton C. Bell left a few years ago, and they're still going to go on, And a prime example is the Eagles. The only original member they have is Don Henley. That's it. But they make millions of dollars going on tour, Granted, guys like Tim Schmidt and Joe Walsh have been long time members for like over 40 years. But they're not the original members, Eagles were already very successful long before that, So you can't say they're original members. And then you got, a lot of people gave Slayer crap for continuing to tour after Jeff Hanneman died, and did an album together after Jeff died, and they brought in Gary Holt and Paul Bostaph. But then a lot of those same people were so upset when they announced that they were calling it quits too, you know. It's like, you can't please everybody. You just can't please everybody. There's always going to be people that are upset and think that this is controversial, think this is wrong, you know, they shouldn't be doing this, you know. But, you know, the way I look at it is it's just going to be a nice tribute, and that's it. I'm not going to put any more thought into it than that. And I think it'll be great to see, you know, a couple of the original members playing, you know, these awesome classics that I used to listen to when I was a teenager, you know, growing up. And I'll love it. I'll have a great time. I'll have a blast. Is it gonna be the same experience as seeing Pantera? No way. I mean, but I was lucky enough to experience that. So, but it's still gonna be a cool, fun, kick-ass show. You know. Will it be the same? No. But I think it's a nice tribute, and that's the way I think we should look at it. It's a nice tribute to Pantera, an amazing band, probably the best 90s metal band, in my opinion. Look at these classics, and you know, you can't beat that. So yeah, I'm on board with it. What do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. How do you feel about this Pantera reunion? Do you consider it to be actually Pantera, or do you just consider it to be a Pantera tribute? And do you think they're wrong for doing this? So let me know in the comments. And thank you for joining me, Sean Patrick Erschen, in Heavy Metal Talk. Tune in and rock on.